Then the Ziphites came to Saul at Gibeah, saying, David is hiding on the hill of Hachilah, opposite of Jeshimon. So Saul, accompanied by 3,000 of the fit young men of Israel, went immediately to the wilderness of Ziph to search for David there. Saul camped beside the road at the hill of Hachilah, opposite Jeshimon. David was living in the wilderness and discovered Saul had come there after him. So David sent out spies and knew for certain that Saul had come. Immediately David went to the place where Saul had camped. He saw the place where Saul and Abner, son of Ner, the commander of his army, were laying down. Saul was laying inside the inner circle of the camp, with the troops camped around him. Then David asked Ahimelech the Hittite and Joab's brother Abishai, son of Zeruiah, will you go with me to the camp to Saul? I'll go with you, answered Abishai. That night David and Abishai came to the troops. Saul was laying there asleep in the inner circle of the camp, with his spear stuck on the ground by his head. Abner and the troops were laying around him. Then Abishai said to David, Today God has delivered your enemy to you. Let me thrust the spear through him into the ground just once. I won't have to strike him twice. But David said to Abishai, Don't destroy him, for who can lift a hand against the Lord's anointed and be innocent? David added, As the Lord lives, the Lord will certainly strike him down. Either his day will come and he will die, or he will go into the battle and perish. However, because of the Lord, I will never lift my hand against the Lord's anointed. Instead, take the spear and the water jug by his head, and let's go. So David took the spear and the water jug by Saul's head, and they went their way. No one saw them, no one knew, and no one woke up. They all remained asleep, because a deep sleep from the Lord came over them. David crossed to the other side and stood on top of the mountain. At the distance, there was a considerable space between them. Then David shouted to the troops and to Abner, son of Ner, Aren't you going to answer, Abner? Who are you who calls the king? Abner asked. David called Abner, You are a man, aren't you? Who in Israel is equal? So why didn't you protect your lord, the king, when one of the people came to destroy him? What have you done is not good. As the Lord lives, all you deserve to die, since you don't protect your Lord, the Lord's anointed. Now look around. Where are the king's spear and water jug that were by his head? Saul recognized David's voice and asked, Is that your voice, my son, David? It is my voice, my lord and king, David said. Then he continued, Why is my lord pursuing his servant? What have I done? What crime have I committed? May my lord the king please hear the words of his servant. If it is the Lord who has incited you against me, then he may accept an offering. But if it is people, may they be cursed in the presence of the Lord. For today they have banished me from sharing in the inheritance of the Lord, saying, Go and worship other gods. So don't let my blood fall on the ground far from the Lord's presence, for the king of Israel has come out to search for a single flea, like one who pursues a partridge in the mountains. Saul responded, I have sinned. Come back, my son. David, I will never harm you again, because today you consider my life precious. I have been a fool. I've committed grave error. David answered, Here is the king's spear. Have one of the young men come over and get it. The Lord will repay every man for his righteousness and his loyalty. I wasn't willing to lift my hand against the Lord's anointed, even though the Lord handed you over to me that day. Just as I considered your life valuable today, so may the Lord consider my life valuable and rescue me from all my trouble. Saul said to him, You are blessed, my son David. You will certainly do great things and will also prevail. Then David went on his way, and Saul returned home. David said to himself, One of these days I'll be swept away by Saul. There is nothing better for me than to escape immediately to the land of the Philistines. Then Saul will give up searching for me everywhere in Israel, and I'll escape from him. So David set out with 600 men and went over to Achish, son of Moach, the king of Gath. David and his men stayed with Achish in Gath. Each man had his family with him. David had his two wives, Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail of Carmel, Nabal's widow. When it was reported to Saul that David had fled to Gath, he no longer searched for him. Now David said to Achish, I have found favor with you. Let me be given a place in one of the outlying towns, so that I can live there. Why should your servant live in the royal city with you? That day Achish gave Ziklag to him, and it still belongs to the kings of Judah today. The length of time that David stayed in Philistine territory amount to a year and 4 months. David and his men went up and raided the Geshurites, the Gritites, and the Amalekites. From ancient times, they had been the inhabitants of the region through Shur as far as the land of Egypt. Whenever David attacked the land, he did not leave a single person alive, either man or woman, but he took flocks, herds, donkeys, camels, and clothing. Then he came back to Achish, who inquired, Where did you raid today? They replied, The south country of Judah, the south country of the Jerahmeelites, or the south country of the Kenites. David did not let a man or woman live to be brought to Gath, for he said, or they will inform on us and say, This is what David did. This is what David's custom during the whole time he stayed in the Philistines' territory. So Achish trusted David, thinking, Since he has made himself repulsive to his people Israel, he will be my servant forever.